Hi, this is The Great Expanse. So, popular YouTuber and political commentator Video Game Donkey created this indie game publishing company called BIGMODE, which I think is pretty rad. And I'm a big fan of Donkey, so when I saw that BIGMODE was hosting a jam, and that Donkey will be playing the games on stream, I was very interested. The jam is supposedly laid back, which I probably won't feel as I approach the deadline. But it has a pretty long working period, which makes me happy because I don't have much time anymore, not with the kids and all. I'm a few days late to the game here, but let's see what the theme is and start brainstorming. What? So my first thought was using the math definition of the word, and I was tempted to make some sort of game based around that. But there would definitely be a bunch of people doing that, and that's kind of the most boring interpretation of the theme, in my opinion. After some soul searching, I decided on this. You would play as this monotone blob, and there would be a variety of modes you could switch into. I think each mode will be assigned to random keys on the keyboard, meaning that you have access to everything off the bat, and it's up to the player to figure out how to beat the game with the modes they have access to. This will also hopefully give the player a fun time exploring which random keys will result in a new mode, which I think will be fun. Also, this gives me leeway to add as much or as little to the game as I'm able to do. Okay, let's start making the game. Okay, so here's the little guy schmoovin' around. I decided that I'm going to make the player modes more animated than I usually do, which may be a mistake for a game jam in which you have to work quickly. But animations were something I felt I'd been lacking in, so I decided to try my hand at it. And here are some little breakable boxes. I temporarily gave the player the ability to break them so you can see the animation. And then I was a bit distracted with school for a week, so now I only have 8 days left for a 2.5-week jam. I didn't want to have fun making this anyway, it's crunch time. So I think most importantly I need to make the actual player modes. I don't have much time now, so I'm going to start with only 5. I made one already, which is just a scaled up version of the base player, so I need 4 more. The next is the tank mode. The sprite for the cannon is separate because its aim is going to be controlled in-game. So I wrote this separate controller for the tank, and here it is going about. I was going to make the bullets knockback boxes, but I didn't have time. After this, I decided that I actually just wanted to keep everything in grayscale, so the big and tank modes had their color removed. I think keeping the player and its modes in black and white will make it kind of stand out, because I plan on making the environment colorful instead. Next, I pay homage to the glorious Video Game Donkey with this donkey mode. The walk animation is really bad. I couldn't figure out how to make the walking look good, and I'm kind of just resigned to it now. In another case of laziness, I just scaled down the player and made that a new mode. And a fun one, the rocket mode. Unsurprisingly, the rocket was a little finicky to get working the way I wanted, but I eventually got it, and I think it's pretty fun. It doesn't launch until it hits the ground, so you can't just have infinite flight upwards and cheese everything. And after making the rocket, I changed the tank and donkey modes to not use the mouse in order to trigger their actions, because switching your hand from the keyboard to the mouse is very cumbersome. Instead, I just mapped their actions to the space button. But when I was doing some testing with the tank, I noticed that the tank wouldn't shoot when the tank was aiming up and to the left. Everything else worked but that. I also tested the donkey, and lo, it had the same problem. I did some testing with my code, and it seemed that the fire method just wasn't getting called at all in that specific circumstance. I was really confused as to why holding the left and up arrows would make the space button not register, but everything else would. So, in a desperate bid, I straight up Googled my seemingly very niche problem. But, to my surprise, there were multiple threads about this exact same issue. And after reading them, I think I've just encountered the most frustrating problem I've ever had in game development. This isn't a me problem, or even a Unity problem. It's literally an unfixable hardware limitation based on the arbitrary row and column positions of the buttons on the keyboard. Well, if there's any upside to this, I somewhat learned how a keyboard works. So, what does this mean for my game? Literally nothing, because I can't assign movement to WASD, because that's where modes are selected. So, I'm just going to live with this problem. Oh well. Now I'm going to work on the display that plays each time you switch modes. I'm thinking of just adding some text sliding across the screen, a camera shake, and maybe some particles for pizzazz. I started making this, and I'm not really sure how it's going to look in-game. I actually kind of like it. I think it looks cool, and it's satisfying to swap modes. Then I created some UI that pops up with the name of the new mode. I was confused as to why the transparent parts of the image were blue and black, but then I remembered that Unity is stupid and shaders don't work very well with the overlay canvas. To fix it, I just had to change the overlay canvas to the screen space canvas. It's a little annoying that I even had to do this, but whatever. And here it looks fixed. And with getting this done, I have so little time left. This was supposed to be a 2.5-week jam, but I've only spent a handful of days working on it. I don't think I'm going to rank well at all, but I still want to create a good enough finished product. There's pretty much like zero game yet, so let's do that. So the theme for the environment is kind of this wonky acid trip kind of place. I think it looks pretty interesting and visually unique, so I'm quite happy with it. Here's more of a showcase of the terrain in-game. I created a few enemies as well as a new indestructible type of box. And then I made these spikes and a way to take damage from the enemies. I don't really like how the hearts in the corner look at all, but I literally had 10 hours left at this point to make the entire rest of the game. I decided to switch gears a bit and make this game a Metroidvania, where you unlock the modes as the game goes on. So I created this collectible that gives the player access to a new mode when collected. And upon collection, it displays which mode the player has access to and how to trigger it. So to win, I figured you would use the various modes you collect in order to help you reach the end, which is just this portal thingy. It's very simple, but whatever. Okay, and then I made the title screen, and made it so you can go back to the title from the pause screen. At this point, I didn't have time to make a logo for the game, so default text for the title it was. And then, I had a final exam from 6:30 to 9:30, which was very inconvenient. I can't believe they scheduled it the same day that the BIGMODE 2023 Game Jam submissions close. Sometimes professors are so out of touch. So I begrudgingly took the exam and rushed out to work on the game. You can say a lot of things about me, but you can't say that I don't have my priorities straight. And in another cruel twist of fate, an hour before the deadline, the pixel editor I use just stopped working for some reason, and I have no idea why. But luckily, Piskel is an online version, which was working. Kinda stressful so close to the deadline. Then I made the entire stage and figured out the game progression in the last hour and a half. I was rushing so hard to finish it, but I actually was pretty happy with how it turned out. It's not really hard, but I think it has a decent amount of challenge. But, that's all theoretical because I did not playtest it at all. Also, I didn't really have time to add lore or better explain where the player needs to reach, so I just added these arrows and hoped the player would figure out that that's where they need to go. It got closer and closer to the deadline, and at the last minute, I added a timer that records how long it took you to complete the game. However, that may have been the final nail in the coffin, as I had several issues with compiling, and then compiling took forever, and I went over the deadline. 2.5 weeks, but really only 6 days. Wasted. Oh wait, nope, they extended the deadline by an hour for people with issues. Huh, that's me. And this way, I was able to playtest a bit and actually make the game beatable. Because in the state the game was in the first build, it wasn't beatable at all, in multiple areas. And then the next day I worked on the itch page, adding screenshots and making a logo. And the name I came up with is super unique as well. In the first day after I submitted, I got a really great comment critiquing my game, and I thought it was really thoughtful. And unsurprisingly, I got called out for not having sound in the game. So I'm not expecting to rank well, seeing how low quality this game is for a 2.5-week jam. But seeing Donkey play my garbage on stream is all that matters to me, so fingers crossed. I hope you enjoyed me doing my first quote-unquote real game jam. I really like Donkey, so I very much wanted to do this one. Anyway, that's it. Download Cavern Clinger or else. See you next time. Bye-bye.